The Low Art by Margaret Atwood. The Penelopiad opens with Penelope, the first person narrator, quoting herself, "Now that I'm dead, I know everything." Penelope then goes on to say that this wish did not come true. At least, not totally. Death, Penelope thinks, despite the knowledge it does bring, is not worth the cost. She even says that she would rather not know some things she has learned. Penelope begins to describe the afterlife, stating that everyone arrives to the underworld in a sack full of words. Words you've spoken, words you've heard, words that have been said about you. Penelope notes that her own sack was full of words about her husband, and that some people say that her husband made a fool of her and got away with everything. Odysseus' account, Penelope thinks, was always so plausible, and many people believed his account of things while taking the mythology with a grain of salt. Penelope admits that even she believed him often, thinking that he would not lie to her since she was such a loyal wife. Bitterly, Penelope thinks that all she amounted to was a stick used to beat other women with, since all the storytellers considered her the model of a faithful wife. Penelope wanted to scream at other women and tell them not to be like her. Penelope admits that she always knew that Odysseus was tricky, but that she pretended not to see that side of him. Instead, she kept her doubts to herself because she wanted happy endings. Now, though, Penelope realizes that lots of people were mocking her in secret. They told stories about her that Penelope calls scandalous gossip, but that she says will only make her seem guilty if she denies them. Penelope decides that it is her turn to make her own story now, because she owes it to herself. She notes that storytelling is a low art and that people would have laughed if she had tried to be a storyteller in the past. However, Penelope states that she no longer cares about public opinions, so she will continue with her story. Penelope states that her lack of a physical body makes speaking difficult, and she has no one to listen to her story. Still, she is determined to tell it. Greetings, everyone. Today is a new day to learn about something new in our 21st century literature. Today, I will be taking up the topic of Unit 5, Module 1, the female voice. So, the story that I just read to you was a story written by Margaret Atwood, the Penelopiad, Chapter 1, The Low Art. So, this is a story that is an excerpt from the story of Odyssey by Homer. In this story, the low art is through the perspective of our character named Penelope. The whole part of the story is to talk about how each person have different perspectives on situations and how women's voices should be heard as equally to how men's voices are heard. Penelope, who is basically the loyal wife to King Odysseus, is rumored and talked about how her husband has made a fool of her and got away with everything. Penelope admitted in the story that she knew that Odysseus has always been tricky, but she didn't want to see that side of him because she wanted happy endings on her side of things. So to understand this story a bit more clear, allow me to read to you about the story of Odyssey by Homer. So in this story, it is through the perspective of our character Odysseus, while in the low art, that is through the perspective of Penelope. So here it says, Odyssey is the story of Odysseus, king of Ithaca, who wanders for 10 years trying to get home after the Trojan War. On his return, he is recognized only by his faithful dog and a nurse, as he returned to his palace only to see 100 suitors to his loyal wife, Penelope. With the help of his son, Telemachus, Odysseus destroys the insistent suitors of his faithful wife, Penelope, and several of her maids who had fraternized with the suitors and reestablishes himself in his kingdom. So, yes, basically, this story, the Odyssey, is from the perspective of Odysseus and his journey during the Trojan War. But that being said, if Penelope was loyal to Odysseus, would that also mean Odysseus is loyal to his wife, just because he slayed all the suitors of Penelope in his palace? Well, mentioned in the story of Odyssey, although he was intelligent and heroic and so on, his loyalty to Penelope was non existent. This is proven by his affairs with other women during his extended travel home, which in fact failed to make Penelope his priority. So, that being said, at the end of the story of the low art, Penelope decides to make her own story because she owes it to herself. She then notes that storytelling is a low art, and if people heard her story, people would just go on and laugh. But even so, she would not care about the opinions the public would make of her and stick the story she has with her. So, moving on, the term low art in the definition refers to art meant for the masses, such as decorative art, which serves the purpose of utility as well. Low art is regarded as mere entertainment without any aesthetic values. In the story, Penelope considers storytelling as a low art because, in terms of storytelling, these can be altered and changed. That is why she went on also by saying that people would laugh at her if she ever became a storyteller. But even so, she still decided to stick to her story and hold onto it a little longer. So the story, The Low Art made by Margaret Atwood, greatly depicts about the women's voices and how they should be treated fairly and equally just like the men, as well as the different perspectives that can be present in many stories and how each person's perspectives are different from the rest. This tells a lot about the present day as well, that even till today, equality of genders is still a subject to many and that some do not believe these gender roles should be treated equally, then differently. But moving on, as I reflect on this story, I think that stories are better understood if you saw the different perspectives of the characters in the story. Realizing to only one part just makes it a one-sided understanding. The low art proves that all women have a voice and that they need to speak out what they think and what their perspectives were. The story talks about the equality between genders, that each gender has a right to speak up for themselves and tells their part of the story, just like what is written in the low art story. I can come to understanding that I can understand what Penelope is going through, and what she had to do was to do what she believed, which was to stick with her story instead of others that can be inaccurate to hers. It was fun to read about the story of Penelope, along with understanding a quick summary of the story of Odyssey to deepen my understanding of the story. I would recommend you to read about the story of Odyssey first, and then read the story of the low art made by Margaret Atwood. It truly is a interesting story, along with some history along the lines of the story. It is a great book and it is a great story. I recommend you to try checking out the story. That'll be it for me in this video. Thank you for watching till the end, and I hope you learned something today about my lesson of the female voice and the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood. Leave a comment down below on what you think about the story of the low art and Odyssey. And make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. And we will see you on our next video. Bye.